Hi everyone, and welcome to the SYSTRAcast podcast. Today we're filming the Next Gen Meets series, where today the Next Gen meets Andy Gubbins, where we're aiming to connect the next generation with senior leadership and emerging voices in the company. Thank you for joining us today, Andy.
No problem. Great to be here.
Just to kick us off, for those who might not know, could you kind of give us a summary of your career path so far and what's led you to your position today?
Yeah, no problem. So I started after doing my GCSEs, went in to do my A-levels, and then was lucky enough to be picked for a business management apprenticeship at MG Rover Group, the car company. You can probably tell from my accent, I'm from Birmingham. So I spent 4 years there, and what that entailed was going around different departments in 6 monthly placements, which was a great from a grounding perspective. Spent kind of time in sales and marketing, in HR, in finance, in tax, in everything around the business management side of it. Then the British decided they wasn't very good at making cars, and I got a tap on the shoulder. I'll never forget it because it was the 8th of April 2005 that said the company had gone into administration. So that meant immediate kind of redundancies and stuff like that, which was always been a moment I look back on as a transitional point. And at that point, one of my later placements had been in logistics. So I'd done a bit of programming and making sure that parts were arriving at the track on time. That transitioned nicely into a kind of a trainee planner role at Atkins, and my career went on from there.
Brilliant. And so what is your role at SYSTRA for those that might not know?
So
What is a day-to-day?
currently I'm the project controls director for the engineering business in the UK and Ireland. Day to day, I would say that's probably 60% of my role. I have a lot of transversal activities with departments like finance and obviously our project delivery. A normal day to day, I can go from 1 minute doing a podcast to doing an interview to thinking about how we're delivering our safety stand-ups, maybe to talking about strategy. So what's great about it is not one day ever looks the same.
Yeah. And do you think then there's some similarities there from your apprenticeship where you were rotating and then to now you're having to wear many hats?
Yeah, definitely. We spent a lot of time, as I said, in different departments, and that's really suited my role now within SYSTRA, in that you have to have, especially at a senior leadership team level, the ability to transition between different tasks and different departments and understand everything about what goes on in the business, not necessarily just your role.
So looking further into your early careers and your transition across all those different sectors, what kind of were the key skills that you picked up there and that's kind of translated in throughout your career?
So I think the real first one, and it's actually a lot of what I've been taught over my career, is you see change as an opportunity. So that's like built into you really early on in your career when you do it like that. A lot of people see change as a threat and as a nervousness towards it, but that kind of built me in a way, and my colleagues, who I'm still quite close to a lot of them, even though it was some time ago, that change is an opportunity, and if you embrace the change, because we actually have no choice because it was built into the program, then you're driven from an early age that change is an opportunity. And then of course there's the network of people you build by moving around those different departments, and the skills you pick up a lot quicker sets you on a really good platform to move forward with.
Are there many challenges that you feel come with having to wear many different hats?
I think the obviously being a planner at heart and having come through the planning kind of function within project controls, often like preparation time is not as much as you'd like for some instances. You, as I said before, you go from one thing to the next quite quickly in a day, especially since the world of work changed in 2020, and a lot of it is teams, and of course obviously we're encouraging people back to the office now, so you've always got general office chats that happen at the same time. So there's always that like worry within yourself that you don't prepare as well as you can when you've got so much on. Obviously that's not applicable to all roles, but when you wear many different hats, as we do at an SLT level, that can sometimes be a challenge that we often face.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of strategies in place that kind of help you transition into different positions and talking with different people and needing to know so much?
Yeah, I think one of the kind of strengths that we've got within the project controls team is I've got people who I can rely on, and are really kind of creating a platform for those to succeed helps me succeed. So that, as the project controls director, is my job, to make sure that the team have got a platform for success, really. So having a strong team around me is obviously super important. And then just old-fashioned time management, obviously understanding what your day looks like, understanding your priorities, understanding kind of what can shift and what can't. And luckily, in a role over the past and now, we're quite we're in a rhythm, i.e. we've got a monthly rhythm, we adhere to. Our projects have got rhythms, so that helps guide what's important and what can sometimes slip.
Yeah. So, as you're a leader yourself now in this position, were there any leaders throughout your career that have played a pivotal role?
Yeah, so I'm lucky to have had a few. First of all, I'd mention my dad from an early age. Obviously, sets the right tone for how you behave, the energy, and everything you put into work. So definitely my dad. And then I've been really lucky to have two kind of really strong bosses in my time. One was my kind of line manager throughout my career at Atkins, who was a great individual, and he's gone on to do good things. And unfortunately, one of them's just left the business a couple of months ago, who's been kind of my seen me in transition to a senior leader within the business. So yeah, I've been really lucky to have two bosses who have obviously believed in me, given me them platforms of opportunities, and then here I am today.
Yeah. Do you kind of see that you adopt their traits into your kind of mentees?
Yeah, definitely. I think not just my two kind of distinct line managers, but the great people you work with on projects as well. You try to take the best of everyone's skills and abilities and shape them into the leader that you want to become. Everyone's got their pros and cons, and taking the best out of all the different people that you work in and around is obviously makes you, and is super important.
Yeah. Can you share a story of maybe a pivotal project that you've been involved in?
Yeah, so I always say it a lot to the team, actually, because obviously the challenge over the last 7-8 years, we've been on some huge kind of major infrastructure projects that will make a huge difference to the UK, that are tough and they're difficult, and you go through difficult times. And I always say you learn more from the difficult projects and the difficult moments you have, not just in projects, but in life in general. We had a project at Atkins. I won't mention it because anyone listening, it might bring back a few difficult moments, but there was a project that went wrong. We was obviously late with delivery. We had significant possession overruns, and ended up in contractual and commercial negotiations to settle on. And that meant spending 6 months of my life with lawyers, talking through what I'd done in the program. I was a planner stroke senior planner at the time. And you quickly learn how good you are at your job when lawyers are questioning your records and your ability to show the progress that had happened. So that was a real kind of pivotal moment early on in my career that sets you in a good standard to move forward and improve from. So that was the one kind of big project that stood out while I was progressing in my career. And then obviously, to talk about especially main work civils now within the SYSTRA world over the last 7-8 years has been a massive kind of challenge, but something that, even though it's still going on, people should look at as a hugely kind of, there'll be lots of people look back that it's been a hugely influential project in their career. So that was great.
And you talk about kind of navigating when things maybe don't go to plan and you have to reevaluate due to setbacks.
Yeah.
How was your experience having to do that at kind of a relatively early point in your career?
So I think I've always been quite a resilient individual, and got taught early on, which has been reinforced kind of throughout my career, especially in the world of work, around treating feedback as data. So really kind of embracing that everyone comes to work to do a good job, and that you want to move forward. So always kind of approaching it like that, in that obviously there's a reason why there's a quote that you learn from your mistakes. So learning from your mistakes and trying to continuously improve, not just yourself, but the people around you, and sharing those experiences. I think, as I say, quite early on, I feel quite resilient in the world of work. So that's kind of stood me in good stead, as you've said.
Is that something you've picked up as a skill, or something that you just think is a good trait that you've always had?
I always think it's inherent, and that it's within me. But then, as I say, I think life experiences and not just in the world of work shape your kind of personality and behaviour. I think I mentioned to you previously, I was lucky enough to go to India at a young age to visit my sister while she was working out there, and it's kind of an eye opener at a young age to go somewhere like that. I've been lucky enough to return many a time now throughout my career work wise, but having that kind of humbling experience early on in my upbringing was really pivotal actually, and it kind of sets the right tone to move forward.
So you mentioned how you were a part of the apprenticeship program in your previous role. How did that kind of stead for you in your career, as it's potentially viewed as a non-linear path with going through the apprenticeship route instead of like a degree
Yeah.
route?
So I was lucky enough to do both at the same time. So the apprentice route include day release to college and then on to university. Luckily, the 4 years when I explained like the business went into administration, that I'd come to the end of my kind of degree. So it worked out from a timing perspective for me. But I'm a big believer in apprenticeship routes, and it's nice to see them like coming back around now. And actually, this week I've spent time talking with a lot of early careers who are potentially joining the business, and you can tell they bring a lot of energy and bring a lot of enthusiasm, and it kind of rubs off on people even at a senior level. I look back on that time with like such fondness, and think about, as I said before, I'm still close to a lot of people who I worked with then, even though our career paths have gone very different ways. So yeah, it's always a time I look back on, and I'm a big, obviously, supporter of apprenticeships because that's a route I take.
Yeah, of course, of course. Are there any other moments outside of work that have kind of shaped how you arrive to work and how you navigate certain situations?
Yeah, definitely. So the biggest one, obviously, I was unfortunate to lose my mum about 3.5 years ago now, suddenly. And obviously that just shapes you quite differently as a person, in that obviously we all put a lot of effort into work and everything, but it gives you a kind of sense of humility about you. And I think we sometimes take things for granted, and it just really kind of resets your thinking, and obviously where you put your energy and everything changes slightly. However, what I would say, it's been a real kind of motivator from a work perspective as well to do even better, because you think about what you're doing it for, and who shaped your career in the first place. And as I mentioned my dad earlier, my mum was obviously an important part of that as well.
Yeah, no, of course. And I think as well, when you kind of you have you have personal experiences with that, it always means that when someone else is in a time of where they might need that bit more support, you have that understanding.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something I've tried not to shy away from talking about, because it's something that unfortunately we'll all go through at some point in our lives, and we'll lose people around us. So yeah, I encourage people to talk about it. It's something that everybody deals with differently. I was back in work after 2 days. My sister was off for kind of 6 months. So it's kind of there's not one size that fits all. People grieve in different ways, but it's whatever works for you. But like you said, Mia, having that ability to talk to people about it. And I'm actually going through it now with one of the team members, actually this morning on WhatsApp, talking to him. And his mum's funeral was yesterday. So I was talking to him about obviously the feeling of today, and then how I found the day after the funeral the worst day, because it feels like everything is finished and everyone forgets about it, but your life never goes back to normal. So
Yeah. There's always such a big period of adjustment that, you're like, it feels like it's all kind of complete, but
yeah.
actually the feeling
And
doesn't kind of go.
yeah, and not to repeat myself, but everyone obviously is really close to you when it happens. And obviously I'm lucky enough to have a lot of friends and family who are still close to me now, but more people are around you, and that their lives go back to normal, but yours unfortunately never does.
Mm. So you've worked quite closely with the next generation leadership team. So I know you've been involved in some of the initiatives, and we've also had the opportunity to come to some of the board meetings that you guys hold. Is there anything that you see that the next generation is going to bring to the transport and engineering industry that maybe isn't so much present?
What a great question. A hell of a lot. I think there's probably 2 or 3 key things for this generation now. I always think, just to talk in general, that the next generation, and especially in the early careers world, bring a energy and enthusiasm that you can't replicate. I think it's so refreshing, spending time in the NGLT on the initiatives because of the passion and drive you've got to make a difference. So I think that is a common theme with early careers and generations. The two for this one are really the digital AI familiarity. It needs to, especially in the world of project controls and PMO, it's going to make a huge difference to our productivity and efficiency as we move forward. The natural, the way you've come through naturally with that will massively impact and improve what we do. And then the other thing for me is the care and concern for the environment and the sustainable impact that what we do has on will naturally be woven into our solutions, whether that be technically or from a PMO perspective, will naturally behave like that rather than having to change our culture, which we've obviously gone through over the past 10, 15, 20 years in that space.
Yeah, and like there's some of the key initiatives that we're currently progressing at the minute, and I think you're right to say that it's almost like who knows where it's going to lead us to. And when you're touching on sustainability and things, we had Rihanna on the podcast, and I think she's also so keen to see what the next generation can do and kind of striving to push standards and driving change into ways that maybe they've just been that way for the longest time.
Yeah, and I think at the moment, over the past 10 years, we've been trying to infiltrate people. It'll come through naturally. Riona's an absolute shining example of an early careers person who's driven and gone through into kind of a real leadership role in the sustainability area. So yeah, some really key areas that they'll make a huge difference on.
Brilliant. To kind of start wrapping up some of the things that we've discussed, is there any sort of advice that you wish you had at the start of your career that you could share with the next generation?
Yeah, I get asked this question quite a lot actually when kind of doing mentoring sessions and stuff. There's a few things. One, keep it simple. I think we already work in a difficult enough industry as it is. Our technical practices and people who drive our solutions are obviously hugely complicated things that we work on a day-to-day basis. So where we can keep things simple, we really should. As I've touched on earlier, I think the world is massively changed in the world of work post-COVID. I think there's a responsibility on us as a team and as people coming through to make sure that those people connections are still as important as ever. We'll move more into the digital space with AI, etc., but there's still building networks of people and building real solid foundations with relationships, which will build kind of on top of the work we've done actually in the business from our behavioural framework of how we want to act as people and behave as people, because I say it quite a lot to the team. We don't sell software or materials in the SYSTRA business. We've got people, so maintaining them people connections, especially in a hybrid world, is just as important as ever. From a people perspective, HR team have worked really hard on the behavioural framework, and I think there's an onus on us all in the business to embrace it and to kind of weave that into our day-to-day kind of work and how we act and how we behave, because as I said again, we've only got our people, and creating the right platform and the right environment for our people to succeed is super important.
Yeah. As you kind of work with people in various different areas of SYSTRA, do you kind of come across there's different types of behaviours and different types of people? How do you kind of work around that?
Definitely. Everybody's different. We've had quite a bit of executive coaching in this space, and we've all looked at ourselves and shone the mirror up to ourselves from a behavioural perspective, and the different types of colours of personalities that they are. And we spent a lot of time doing that as an SLT, and then I've encouraged the wider team to do it. There's a book called, I haven't got any incentives to mention it, but there's a book called Surrounded by Idiots, which is obviously no offense to everyone, but it's a really good book that explains the differences of what makes people tick and how different people behave in different situations. So I think there's a a real kind of emphasis on us individually understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses from a behavioural perspective. And that book actually articulates how to deal with those different people. So it's a really good indication of how important behaviours are in not just in the workplace, but in life in general, but how you come across different behaviours all through your career, whether that be at any level. And I think the one thing I really do want to say is that the kind of the part of my journey, you realise that you never stop learning, and you never stop learning technically or what you do, but also from a behaviours perspective, there'll be always things that you can improve on. And if you kind of act in that humble way where you're constantly trying to improve yourself, that would be one of my biggest tips.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's a big key takeaway. I think as I've kind of been interviewing different people, it's that everybody approaches so many different situations with a different mentality and a different approach. And that the sooner you understand that none of them are wrong and none of them are right, it's just that individual mindset, then I think you're better navigating all these situations that you
Yeah,
mentioned.
and I think there's some really good like traits. Open and honesty, we always push a lot. I was lucky enough to work on the first Pure Alliance in the UK, which where we were injected with the collaborative behaviours and all stuff like that, which kind of drill you into how everybody's different, but treating everyone fairly and with respect is obviously a given. So yeah, I think a lot of people can learn from that and instill it in our everyday work, whether that be how we interview, how we kick off our projects, how we deliver, how we talk to clients, everything like that. So, but everyone's different.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for the advice. That's some really insightful things we've spoken about. So we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much,
Great.
Andy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Next Gen Meets podcast. You'll find this on the SYSTRAcast website, along with YouTube and wherever else you get your podcast episodes.